Okay, for the JavaScript part, we're gonna break it down in multiple parts, all right? Each kind of functionality in its own part. So for now, let's just try to create that loop. So every time we click play, it loops. It goes dum 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 one by one, okay? So that's kind of what we wanna do. Okay, so let's just create the class of DrumKit, like that. Curly brackets. We're going to build out a constructor, and we're not going to be passing any parameters in here, so we're going to leave it empty. Okay, next up, I'm going to add a property in here. We're going to do this dot pads. Okay, set this equal to document dot query selector all. I'm going to get all the pads, like that, pad. All right, these are these. All right, each individual pad. I'm going to grab all of them. Next up, let's grab the audio as well. Let's do this dot kick audio is equal to document dot query selector, just a simple one, kick sound. All right, the actual audio, kick sound, like that. All right, so these down here, kick sound, we're gonna grab all of these. Let's duplicate this 2 more times. Call this snare sound, snare audio, and this one hi-hat audio. Okay, change this to snare and this one to hi-hat. Okay, next up, what I want to do is I'm going to add something called an index, and I'm going to leave it here for now, this dot index, and you're going to see what this is going to do. I'm going to add 0. All right, this is going to track our actual track here. So I just add this. And let's start off adding a method. All right, we're not gonna be doing anything else crazy. Okay, so what I wanna do is add a repeater. So something that kind of loops over this, and then it restarts one by one. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna add a repeat method. Okay, I'm gonna create a step, something that steps through each pad one by one. And what this is gonna be, let step is equal to, I'm going to grab this dot index, all right, because we're starting from 0, and I want to get all the way up to the last one, to 8. So I'm going to add a percentage sign and 8 in here. All right, and what this is going to do is when we arrive to 8 with the index, so we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. When it goes to 8, the step is going to be 0 again. Okay. So we're creating kind of a loop here. Because remember, this sign means the remainder of. So when we have 16, it's going to be 0, right? When we have, again, if you know the basics, if we saw the basic section of the JavaScript course, you know how this works. It's not that difficult. Okay, so you're going to see it in just a bit. We're going to show it. All right, so this is all I'm going to do for now. Next up, I want to add a start, all right? And that start is going to also invoke this repeater method. Okay, so how is that going to work? Let's create another method here called start. Okay. And basically what I want to do is set an interval here, something that loops over a function multiple times. In this case, this method, all right? I want to keep invoking this multiple times. So what I want to do is I'm going to set an interval. I can do set interval like that. I'm going to add an arrow function in here like that, and curly brackets. Remember, if I don't add arrow function in here, if I call this dot repeat, it's not going to work, because when we add a function inside a method like this, and we don't use arrow functions, the keyword this in here is going to refer to the window. So we add the arrow function so it keeps the outer this. All right, so in this case, this is going to work. This dot repeat is going to grab the repeat of the drum kit. If we would use a normal function, it would grab the window. Okay, so we call this dot repeat in here. And how many times do we want to run this? I can add a comma here. Let's do 1 second for now. So here we can add the milliseconds. 1000 is going to mean 1 second. And let's just do that for now. All right, so I can go down here and I can create a new drum kit. So const drum kit, I'm going to do lowercase equals new drum kit, like that. Again, I'm not passing in any parameters here. The constructor doesn't have any. Oh my goodness, English is too hard. So we just leave it empty and it's automatically going to generate these things and all the methods. So now I can call drumKit dot start, which is going to invoke this method, and it's also going to invoke this repeater. Okay, that's going to repeat over this. It's going to invoke this multiple times every second. So let's go here and console log out the step in the repeater and see what happens. Press F12, go to console. All right, we get 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. All right, what's happening? Well, our index here is always 0, unfortunately. So we have to kind of increase that. So what we're going to do is in the repeater, let's do a step plus plus. Okay. Actually, my apologies, a this dot index plus plus. All right, we want to increment this one by one. So now what's going to happen is, take a look, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we're going to reset back to 0. Because as soon as we hit 8 here, this dot index, as soon as it's 8, this one resets to 0. Okay, let me kind of show you a better example here. We're going to do step. I'm going to add step in here. And index, it's going to be this. Oops, this dot index. All right, there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And as soon as we hit 8, take a look, that's 0. All right, our index is going to keep increasing. That's fine, we don't really care about that. We only care about step here, to loop over all of these individual ones. There we go. Nice, so now we can use this step to kind of check every pad. Pad 0, pad 1, pad 2, pad 3, pad 4. Okay, because that's what we have set in here. Let me quickly show you. In our index.html, we set each pad to have B0, B1, B2, B3, B7, all the way to B7. And there we go, that's what we do. We go all the way to 7 and then restart to 0. So we're looping over this perfectly fine. Okay, so let's kind of make this logic a bit nicer. How can we, let's loop over each bar, each beat. So let's get rid of this console log here. I'm going to say const active bars is equal to document. I'm going to query select all. I'm going to add backticks. All right, we have B here. So I'm going to say B dot B, so the class B, but I'm going to interpolate that value. I'm going to add a $ and curly brackets, and I'm going to add the step here. So what this is going to do is it's going to select from each track B0, this one. It's going to select this B0 and this B0. All right, and then it's going to go to B1, 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 and so on and so forth. So we can actually see this in effect now if we console log out active bars. Let's see. There we go. We looping over all of these three, all of these three, all of these three. And if we add more pads or tracks, it's going to do the same thing. Perfect. Let's get rid of this. All right. Okay, let's see if we need to do anything else here. Let's add a BPM for now, which is going to be beats per minute. All right, how fast it's going to loop over. And then in the next part, we're going to actually add the sound. So for now, what we're going to do is go up here and add a new parameter. So we're going to call this this.bpm. I'm going to set the default to something like 150. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to go in this start and we're gonna add a const interval. All right, so we're not setting a fixed one here of 1000. I'm gonna set 60 divided by this.bpm. All right, so if you have 60 beats per minute, well, you have to divide it by 60, so that's gonna be 1, right? So 20 beats per minute, you divide it by 60, and that's basically the calculation. And I'm gonna add times 1000 here at the end, because this interval thing here takes it by milliseconds. I'm gonna have to amplify this. Again, the way you kind of calculate this is, well, what's 120 BPM, beats per minute? You divide it by the minute, and then you get your BPM. And then we just add times 1000, so we can pass in here by milliseconds. All right, so rather than passing in 1000 here, I'm gonna pass in this interval. Okay, so now it's gonna be 150, the speed of it. I don't think I'm actually console logging it out anymore, but we can check now. Console log, let's do step 0, 1, 2. As you can see, it's quite fast now, but if I change this to something like 40, it's way slower. All right, so we have the ability to control the speed of the tracks now, so that's cool. And change it back to 150, that's fine. Again, this is just a simple little calculation here, nothing too crazy. Okay, I think that's gonna be it. Actually, before we move on, let's also add a thing. So we need to click on the actual button to start this, all right? We don't wanna run it automatically. So let's go in here, the constructor again, and select the play button. So let's do this dot play button equals document query selector, and I believe we added a class of play. Okay, now we can go down here. I can cut this and just go all the way down here. I'm gonna do drum kit dot play button dot add event listener. On click, I want to run a function. Now again, I'm not gonna add it like this. Drum kit dot start. Now let's keep this open. As you can see, this dot repeat is not a function. That's gonna break for us. All right, so what I need to do here, even if I add an arrow function and pass this as a callback, all right, there we go. Now it's completely fine, so it works. So another little trick here, again, we passed it in here. It's not gonna recognize the keyword this again. All right, let's go back here. So we added drumkit.start. This doesn't work, so let's just do, we can even do a simple function here and pass it in. That's gonna work perfectly fine. Okay, so I'm gonna run the callback in here. All right, I'm just gonna add it to a callback. Okay, that's good. Let's refresh. Let's also add, so when we click on these, they become active. So let's select, what do we need to select? I don't think we need to select anything. I think we just need to loop over each pad. So let's go here and we can do drumkit dot pads. All right, dot for each pad. I'm gonna add an arrow function in here. I'm gonna add a pad dot add event listener. On click, I just want to run drumkit dot active pad. All right, just a simple little method here. Again, I don't really care about the keyword this in here because I'm just gonna add a class to this. So I can add it straight up in here. Okay, let's navigate all the way to the top. This is gonna be super simple. I'm just gonna add an active pad here, active pad. Again, if I console log the keyword this in here, take a look. All right, it's gonna be each individual one. But all I need to do here is say this dot class list dot toggle active. There we go. So now when I click on each, it's going to add the class of active. And in our CSS, if you remember, we did add this piece of code. So this is why it works. All right, kick pad active, snare pad active, hi-hat pad active. Again, just a quick pointer here. The reason why I didn't add drumkit.start in here is because the keyword this is going to refer to the actual play button here, all right, the one that I'm adding the event listener to. So drumkit.play button. So if I add it in here, the keyword this and the repeater is not going to mean this.index, it's going to be button.index, which doesn't make any sense. So take a look, drumkit.start here. If I hit play, it's going to give me the play button. All right, I'm just console logging out the keyword this in here. All right, then the start, my apologies here. All right, console log this is going to mean the button. So that's why we need to add a function in here like that and pass it in here. So now it's going to keep its meaning, drumkit.start. Now the keyword this is going to refer to the actual object itself. So it's going to work, okay? So when you add these event listeners, you're going to have to add a callback function and then invoke your method in here rather than just adding it straight on as a callback. Okay, so I hope that clarified the things a bit up. And okay, so we can add these, we can hit play, but nothing really happens and the sounds don't play. So next up, we're going to animate the pads and we're also going to make the sounds.